Path of Exile enjoyers. With Affliction League coming to an end very soon, I wanted to record a little video build showcase for the character that I played this league, which, let me say something about this league. It's been one of the best Path of Exile leagues, I think, of all time. And not for necessarily the obvious reason that everybody else is going to say, which is that the loot was out of control, right? It was, you go into a map and you walk out with so many inventories full of stuff that you can't even pick it all up, right? I actually think the reason I loved this league so much was because I think that the Wildwood Ascendancies, the charms, the crazy blood magic synergy with the warlock, all that stuff was just so much fun to play with. And given that Affliction League is not going core, and the Wisps, they're only coming back in the form of the boss thing for now, I wanted to make a little snapshot in time of what this character was like before it becomes completely unplayable forever, basically. Because the charms, insanely rare on this character that I'm using, and they're just going to disappear. The Ascendancy tree is going to be gone. And yeah, I just wanted to give a quick overview, maybe not even quick, but an overview of this character, because I put a lot of brain power and currency and time into this character. So let's go over the general idea of the build, and then I will run a map, and then I will show you the gear and the passive skill tree and the jewels and all that.
Can I not have but a
In general, this build is a let's see. It uses these charms with nearby corpses explode when you war cry, dealing 6% of their life as physical damage. Use 3 of them, and we trigger war cries automatically, and we just go around blowing up corpses, right? It's pretty simple. Now, the way that we scale all this stuff is what makes it really cool. So after we run a map, I'll break it down. There's a lot of really cool interactions on this build, a lot of really cool scaling that we utilize, and it would be a shame if nobody else got to kind of see what I was doing with this build. Because I got it all the way to level 100 with no problem, doing juiced T16 maps, Baldo maps, all kind of stuff. Yeah, it's definitely worth checking out. But yeah, let's run a map. Hey, this is future me. We're gonna skip the Wildwood section. I got like some purple juice. It wasn't that much, Build could handle a lot more, but I was kind of in a rush to record this before the league ended, so you get what you get. All right, so let's go over the gear here real quick, and I'll explain each interaction, you know, in the build that makes it tick. So, right off the bat, important to note these charms, right? Specifically, I've gone for ones that have minimum endurance charges. So I have 3 with +1 minimum endurance charge and the Corpse Explode mod. Why the minimum endurance charge? Well, because we're using the Eternal Apple to trigger war cries. And the war cries are triggered when you lose endurance charges. So if you have one less than your maximum as your minimum, then what's going to happen is you only need to gain one endurance charge in order to trigger this other line on here, this you lose all endurance charges on reaching maximum endurance charges. So we take one node on our passive tree for a +1 max endurance charge, which gives us 4 max, and then we have 3 minimum from those charms. Now, how are we generating the endurance charges? Well, it's pretty straightforward. We come up here to this Megalomaniac cluster jewel we're using. This one grants us 3 very useful passives. This was very hard to get this jewel. I think it probably is probably the only one like it in the league. But we're using Enduring Composure, which gets us 1 endurance charge if we've been hit recently. Also gives us some armor, which is nice because we are, stacking some armor. Not a ton, but enough. Of note on this cluster jewel also, 25% increased armor per 5 power for 8 seconds when you Warcry. It just amazing node. And then Fettle, of course. You can't go wrong with Fettle, right? So every time we take damage, or sorry, not even take damage, you just have to be hit, right? Every time you're hit, for the next 4 seconds, you're losing an endurance charge every second, which means we're going to trigger a Warcry every second because we have 3 different Warcries socketed in here. And if we add up all our cooldown recovery, it puts us just to where the Ancestral Cry comes back off cooldown as General Cry goes off. So we're always going to have a Warcry every second. So how are we getting hit, you might ask? Well, let's take a look at our cast while channeling setup in our boots, our Corpse Walker boots, which help give us some corpses that we're going to Warcry to get things started. Using Forbidden Rite of Soul Sacrifice. Now this is interesting. This was one of the newer Transfigured gems they added this league. And it deals 15% of your maximum energy shield as base chaos damage, whatever. But you take 40% of your maximum energy shield as chaos damage as well. And this is cool because we don't have any energy shield. So it does 0 damage to us. However, it still counts as a hit. So as long as we Cyclone and it will use this Forbidden Rite, we will take damage, which means it's going to start triggering our War Cry, as you can see. They just keep going. And that's basically the what drives everything in the build, is getting these automated war cries going with this Forbidden Rite of Soul Sacrifice and the Eternal Apple. Now, another thing that was really popular this league was this Defiance of Destiny amulet. And I mean, you can't avoid how good this amulet is, so I definitely use this for a defensive layer. In addition, for defensive layers, we're using, don't know where, I got so many jewels on my tree. Let's see, Blood Notch, very important. We're doing the Blood Notch, and where are you? It's the Immutable Force, I'm sure you know. There it is. I got an Immutable Force as well. Very, very tanky build when you use all 3 of these items together. But it's definitely a very good defensive layer. So how are we scaling the damage of these corpse explosions? Well, they're physical damage, right? They are 6% of the enemy's life as physical. So what scales physical damage pretty well? Well, this helmet right here does. This gains 5% of physical damage as extra damage of each element per spirit charge. And we basically have stacked up these ridiculous amounts of Abyss Jewels with specifically max life and minions deal X% increased damage if you used a minion skill recently. I've gone for like 20% rolls on everything I can. Now these ones in my armors are rare, but in a second I'll show you what makes this really cool. Let's note that the avoid shock here, we've got a 50% roll. Avoid bleed, we've got a 50% roll there as well. Another 50% avoid shock, and I'm sure you know why we're doing that. It's for wherever the storm shroud thing is. I don't know. We're using a storm shroud somewhere. There it is. So we can avoid all ailments with just these 2 jewels that we've socketed here. We're avoiding all ailments. We're also avoiding poison right here. 2 for avoiding poison for 100%. And another one to avoid bleed. So we've got 100% avoid bleed. And we've got corrupted blood immunity here as well. Couldn't really find a great jewel for this one. I didn't really search too hard after a while. I've just, because I was already level 100. And yeah. But pretty good immunity there. But let's see. We're using this Shroud of the Lightless, which also scales with a bunch of Abyss Jewels, right? We get max life, max mana. We're penetrating elemental resistances. Every Abyss Jewel is going to do that. And again, for this one, 5% of fizz damage is extra of each element. So that's giving us for every Abyss Jewel is giving us an extra 15% elemental damage, right? Because this is a physical thing we're scaling. So what we've done on our passive tree is we're using voices, of course. Of course we're using voices. We're stacking a bunch of these corrupted magic Abyss Jewels with just max life, and minions deal 20% increased damage if you used a minion skill recently. They're literally all max rolled on my passive tree. I've rolled them all myself. It's not too difficult. I had to buy a lot of these fractured mod ones and then just alt spam and corrupt. But the reason why we want to use the magic and corrupted jewels, if you haven't caught on yet, is we're using the adorned. I spent the entire league trying to get a 150% from Valdo's maps, but I only ever ended up getting a 149, unfortunate. But now the maps are too rare to really even... Like nobody's listing them on trade anymore because the league is kind of dead at this point. So, but yeah, that scales these jewels to be it's almost 100% increased damage, or sorry, it's almost 100 max life and 50% increased damage. So they're very very powerful, and we have, I think it's 19 Abyss Jewels, giving us 95% of physical damage is extra damage of each element. So pretty beefy when you've got this these spirit charges. And something interesting to note, what I've done is I've got Archmage support in the helmet, which means that our Spirit Burst takes a mana cost that is 5% of our unreserved max mana, right? But if you'll notice, we don't have any mana. So that's not good, right? We can't cast Spirit Burst. No, it's actually a good thing. Because it means we can't spend our spirit charges. So if we get... when we gain a spirit charge, because I have no mana, I can't spend it. So I just keep this bonus forever. Well, not forever, but as long as I'm killing something every 10 seconds, I'll have 95% of fizz as extra damage of every element on every corpse explosion. And it's good. It's great for mapping. Sometimes single target can be a little lackluster if you don't have the ability to get those spirit charges up. So it's not like the best uber boss or anything like that. But it will do the T16 juice maps. It'll do the crazy abyss maps. I've actually been playing it with Breach a lot. I think Breach has been really fun. Um, but yeah, it's a really cool interaction with the helmet, in my opinion, that I don't think enough people really take advantage of. It's kind of a pain to set up because you have to have very specific levels of mana, reservation, etc. Because I still have to be able to use my Cyclone. I still have to be able to use, Convocation. Speaking of Convocation, the reason we're using Convocation on our left click, so when we're cycloning around, we're holding down left click as well. Rip to that in the next league, by the way. We paid the price, but holding down the Convocation button means we've always used a minion skill recently, which is why we're using the Scourge. Scourge means increases and reductions to minion damage affect you at 150% of their value, which is what we're scaling on all of these Abyss Jewels. So the 20% becomes, 30%. The 30% gets juiced up to even crazier levels with the Adorned. And it's overall a lot of damage that you can juice with this Abyss Jewel setup. And these rings I crafted myself. These are just some recoup life, chaos res, and mana cost rings. Essentially, these allow my light poacher spirit burst setup to not trigger, but I can also still just barely use my other skills. And it's really, really close to like a little bit off on the mana, and then you completely scuff the build, right? So you have to have -3, you have to have a -8, you have to have everything exactly right. We're using a mage blood, of course. Pretty standard this league. If you played enough, you can get a mage blood. We got the mana cost reduction. Goodbye to that as well next league. We've got some armor flasks here, and then the curse immunity over here. And I think that pretty much is it. We have a Watcher's Eye here for some more mana cost reduction. And, But yeah, the mana cost thing, basically what it comes down to is you want your Spirit Burst, where is it, Spirit Burst? You want Spirit Burst to have a mana cost. But you want everything else you need to cast to not have a mana cost. So it can be, like I said, a very tricky balancing act. And, we had to spend a lot of time to get that one balanced out just right. I don't think there's too much else to say. We're running Determination, Defiance Banner, and a Clarity. Oh, right. The reason we don't have any mana, I'm sure that some of the more knowledgeable players figured out. We're using the Agnostic, and we're also using Clarity with Arrogance. So that's why we're at 80-20 out of 80-87 life, because that's our Clarity, reserving a little bit of life there. Which, if you reserve life while you're using the Agnostic, it just constantly drains your mana, no matter what you do. So we never have mana, but we don't need it. We don't want it. Pretty cool build that I played a lot this league of this build. It did all the stuff I wanted to do. And anytime you get a character to level 100, you feel pretty happy about it. Especially when you come up with the build, kind of build it your own way, right? Like, you feel an extra level of satisfaction when you're not just playing Penance Brand of Dissipation or whatever. I'm going to leave it there. Hopefully we'll come back in a future league with another interesting character. A couple other things that I forgot to mention on the passive tree. We also have this node here, little corpse node, right? We also have this recoup. This goes for the blood notch node, make us get stunned all the time. We have no ES, so. And then what else was there? That which was taken. This is like an insane that which was taken for this build. It gives us frenzy charges, gives us phasing, more corpse life, and it's another 6% corpse explode. I don't know how I found this thing. I got it for like, I don't know, 30 divines. That was like nuts, right? Like crazy jewel for this build. So that was really cool to get that. We're also using this over here, this Warcry Mastery, to debilitate enemies. Debilitating is really strong if you're always Warcrying. And then yeah, some cooldown recovery and AoE. So we got some armor and life, you know. Also using this Unnatural Instinct here to grab. Really, we're just getting this AoE pretty much. Just doesn't really give too much else. A little skill effect duration. Some life and strength and physical damage. You know, we do scale the physical damage a little bit. Some life regen. Yeah, it's yeah.